So guys, the Boxing Day fixture list did not disappoint. Let's talk about it. So welcome back to another video on the channel, guys. As always, this video is going to be split into two halves. So the first half of the video, we're going to be going over all the matches that took place in the Championship over Boxing Day, and we've got a lot of talking points to go over. And then in the second half of the video, I'll be giving you guys my midweek score predictions for all the Championship action we got going on. Before we do hop into anything though, I must give a big shout out to our sponsors over at OneFootball. So if you've not already, make sure to go ahead and check it out in the top line of the description down below. Really handy to stay on top of everything going on around the footballing world. If you saw my transfer video that came out last week, we've got the January transfer window, which is a matter of days away from opening now. So if you want to keep updated with all the latest transfer rumours going on around your club in the Championship and the footballing world in general, OneFootball's the place to do that. Keep on top of all the recent stats and get live updates to your phone whenever a goal does go in. And just before we do head into any of the individual matches, I will include your guys' score predictions on screen now. So fair play to everyone who did get a score prediction correct over Boxing Day. I had a really good one actually. I managed to get 3 of my score predictions spot on. So I managed to get Bristol City against Wycombe, QPR against Swansea, and Coventry against Stoke. And I was quite close to getting a couple of the others as well. So myself personally, not too bad going. If we take a look to the side of me, what that then means for the main prediction league. Now myself, I had a pretty decent week, like I said, picking up 10 points. I'm just behind Juvest FC and Ant Shipman at the moment. And then for the League 1 table to the side of me, we've got quite a few new entries coming into this league as well. And I have to say at the moment, there's really nothing between the League 1 prediction league and the main prediction league. It's so close in there. So if you do go on to enjoy today's video, make sure to leave a like. But without any further ado, let's talk about these games. And starting out with Barnsley, they saw off Huddersfield by 2-1 thanks to a last minute winner, 94th minute. Now, Huddersfield actually started out fairly bright in this game. They had a couple of chances in the early stages. The goal which Barnsley gave away was a little bit cheap. I think it was Solbauer's man who just about gets ahead of him to nick it into the back of the net. But Huddersfield had other chances. There was a really nice ball from Jonathan Hogg into the path of Fraser Campbell, which he just couldn't quite keep his composure about him, and he drags that shot wide. But Barnsley do get back into the game thanks to a bit of a scrappy goal themselves, really. The ball just about bundles over the line. It was Heelick with the goal in the end, and he actually pops up with the winner in the 94th minute. But Huddersfield's levels in the second half just seemed to drop off, looking at the positions they were getting into in the first half compared to the second. Didn't seem to be as much intensity about them, and Barnsley obviously took advantage of that. And one thing you would say about this Barnsley side, it's another game where they've won after conceding first, so really good mentality about them at the moment. You know, it was the same in the game they had against Preston not too long ago, and actually since Valérien Ismaël's come in, their form has been absolutely fantastic, especially at Oakwell. They're a really tough side to beat. Since he has come in, Barnsley have got a 64% win ratio, and he's now guided them up to 10th in the league, so this Barnsley squad really is flying under the radar at the moment with how well they're playing. Then we have Blackburn against Sheffield Wednesday playing at a 1-1 draw. Now we probably had 2 of the best goals scored this weekend in this match. Adam Reach with an absolute belter for Sheffield Wednesday, and Joe Rothwell with an absolutely fantastic dribble. He takes on about 4 Sheffield Wednesday players, just runs straight through them and has the finish to go along with it. It was quite similar to the goal he scored against Brentford, so this wasn't a one-off for Joe Rothwell. Sheffield Wednesday thought they won it late on, but Tom Lee's goal was ruled off for offside. Looking back on the replay from the angle that we see, it's very hard to tell without a more conclusive angle if he was on or offside, but all I would say, it was a very close call that obviously has ultimately gone against Sheffield Wednesday there. Now, in terms of Adam Reach, he's been a player who's had a couple of moments so far this season. I'm thinking that assist away at Norwich was fantastic, obviously this goal here. He's a player who hasn't quite been himself for the last year or so, but Sheffield Wednesday have got a fantastic player on their hands there. Blackburn, of course, a big positive was seeing Bradley Dack back in action and involved for them. For the vast majority of the time on the Championship run-up so far this season, we've spoken about Blackburn in a very positive light. However, they still find themselves a fair way away from the playoffs at the moment, just 1 win in their last 5 matches now. Blackburn fans, what do you think is the missing piece of this side at the moment that's just limiting you from really kicking on to that next level? Next up to Ashton Gate, where we have Bristol City getting back to winning ways with a 2-1 home victory against Wycombe. That continues Wycombe's winless run as they are now rooted to the bottom of the Championship. Now, for Bristol City, much needed 3 points after the recent run they've been on. The first goal well taken by Chris Martin, nice ball in from Callum O'Dowda. He was one of the Bristol Bristol City players I was really impressed with last time out at Deepdale. But for Wycombe, it's another frustrating story where they've ultimately lost the game by 1 goal. It's such fine margins with Wycombe at the moment. You know, the comparison I'd make would be to someone like Sheff Wed United in the Premier League at the moment. They're really not far away from picking up something from these games. You know, it's always by a 1 goal margin, and ultimately in the end, the fine margins were Bristol City had Jeju to bring off the bench. Gareth McCleary does get Wycombe back into the game, but Jeju pops up with the 87th minute winner. We had a lot of late drama this weekend in the Championship. I think that's now Jeju's 3rd goal of the season, all 3 of which have come from off the bench. But what a strike it was, by the way. He nearly takes the back of the net off. The power he generates behind it, brilliantly taken by Jeju. And ultimately that result for Bristol City gets them back within the playoff picture, just 3 points off 6th place now. So after the recent run of results that they'd had, that was much needed. After that, we have Brentford beating Cardiff by 3 goals to 2. Now, Boxing Day did not disappoint in terms of high quality goals being scored. Will Vokes with an absolutely outrageous effort from inside his own half. I think that up until this point, was it Scott Sinclair against Bournemouth who had like the furthest out goal being scored, but Will Vokes absolutely smashed that in this one. And then Sergi Canos responds with an absolute beauty of his own, volleying into the back of the net. Now, Sergi Canos has always been a bit of a confusing player. He's always someone who comes up in moments for like 2 or 3 performances throughout a season, and then we'll barely hear of him for the rest of it. But I know that of late he has struggled with injuries and things like that, trying to make his way back into this Brentford side now. This was a really next level performance there from the Spaniard, who got a hat-trick in this game. 2nd goal was brilliantly taking catches out Smithies at his near post, and then the 3rd goal, wonderfully cheeky from him. And obviously Will Vokes gets that goal back for Cardiff, but it's not enough for them in the end. And this result for Brentford now, and this unbeaten run that they still find themselves on, really puts them into that automatic promotion picture, especially with Bournemouth not playing this weekend and with Norwich losing as well. That leaves them 4th now on 38 points. Swansea is 2nd at the moment on 39. What held Brentford back ultimately last season was their start to this season was just a bit too slow, and they left them with a little bit too much catch up to do at the end of the season. Obviously they went on that fantastic run, but ultimately just fell short at the end. This season it seems like they've clicked up into gear a lot sooner than they did last year. For that reason at the moment they're looking like a really strong outfit for promotion. Then we had Coventry against Stoke playing out a goalless draw. We did predict this one coming into it. We didn't see all too many goals being scored, but you have to give credit to each side. Their defensive records as of late have been absolutely fantastic. That's now Coventry's 3rd clean sheet in their last 5 matches. 1 point that we picked up on Coventry earlier on into the season was, you know, they were playing some brilliantly fantastic football going forward, but sustainably defensively they were just leaking far too many goals. They've really tightened that up recently, and considering that they've got their #1 first choice goalkeeper out injured at the moment, you know, Ben Wilson stepped in, done a really good job for them so far this season. The same can be said for Joe Bursick in net for Stoke, who have been ridiculously watertight at the back. For Stoke, that's now their 4th consecutive clean sheet in the Championship, and the away side probably would have been more disappointed not to have gone on to win this one. Jordan Thompson had a couple of good chances, Stephen Fletcher had a very good chance as well, but ultimately nothing was quite falling for them. Goals have been the one issue which is just holding this Stoke squad back at the moment, but with their defensive stability they're always going to be in and around that playoff picture. For Coventry, it was nice to see Matty Godden back in the picture for them. I think that for them to score more goals consistently this season, Godden's going to have a large part to play in that. So ultimately it's not the worst point in the world, albeit Stoke maybe a little bit more disappointed not to pick up all 3. Next up then to Derby up against Preston, where Alan Brown popped up with a 97th minute winner. Now this was a little bit of a weird match, to be completely honest with you, because up until the 20-minute mark the game was sort of in the balance. Martin Wycombe then gets that red card for a bit of a stupid challenge really. I don't think that any Derby fans that I've seen at least have had any complaints about that. It was a bit of a reckless challenge from him. After that I thought that Preston were alright in the first half. I thought that in wide areas especially we were causing a couple of problems. Barcusen looked quite good. Josh Earl on the other side making those overlapping runs from fullback I thought was quite good as well. And we had a couple of efforts here and there. We were just lacking that sort of focal point down the middle to really put Derby to the sword. But in the second half I didn't think that North End were particularly great, to be honest with you. And Derby, the way they actually tinkered with the system and changed around their shape a little bit to accommodate for the 10 men in the second half, they looked like a really tough nut to crack. Ultimately, they didn't carry much of a goal threat going forward. You know, Declan Rudd didn't really have anything to do throughout the match, but defensively, they actually shaped up really well. And Preston found ourselves getting, you know, ever more frustrated as the game went on. You know, Alex Neil tried to change it, going for Reece and Stockley together. That didn't really seem to work. And heading into the final stages of this game, I couldn't see a goal coming from anywhere, to be be completely honest with you. You know, we had a couple of half chances from Barkhuizen and Maguire, but then Alan Brown in the dying embers of this match, and it was such a well-taken goal as well. He rolls the ball onto his weaker left foot and just bends it past Marshall. I mean, that was a sinker of a goal for Derby in terms of what they actually put into this match. For Preston, a much needed bit of consistency about us at the moment. You know, it wasn't the best performance, but that's now back-to-back wins for North End, keeps us comfortably mid-table for the time being. For Derby there, that was ultimately a big chance for them to get out the bottom three with the point, but Alan Brown's goal sees them staying 22nd in the league at the moment. Forest against Birmingham ended as a goalless draw. Forest in the end probably being just about the best of two poor sides in this one, really. It didn't look like a particularly great spectacle of a match, and we said coming into this one that we thought it was going to be a fairly low scoring one. I said it would be 1-0 either way, but 0-0 in the end probably wasn't the most surprising result in the world. Each keeper popped up with a couple of decent saves, but from Forest's point of view, disappointed that they didn't go for this one a little bit more. You know, they were coming up against the Birmingham side fresh off the back of conceding 4 goals. Neil Etheridge, to be fair to him, actually did come up with a couple of decent saves. The same for Samba in net for Forest as well. For Birmingham, one player who I think probably deserves quite a bit of credit is Judge Friend coming back into the picture after his injury. Birmingham so far this season yet to keep a clean sheet when Friend's not been playing, but with Judge Friend in the side, they kept 6 clean sheets now, so obviously his impact is massive on this Birmingham defence. We mentioned it a lot at the start of the season, how good he was. But for Forest, again, just a bit of an uninspiring and quite boring performance, to be honest. That's the worst thing you can be as a football club, boring to watch. And that's what Forest are at the moment, I'm afraid to say. Next up, we then had Swansea beating QPR by 2 goals, still a result which sees Swansea going into the top 2 of the Championship, and clinical football from them going forward. The same can't be said about this QPR side, who are now 8 games without a win. They've only scored 2 goals in their last 6 matches. What's been the case, I've noticed in a lot of the games that QPR have been losing recently, they'll have a lot of the ball, but in terms of clear-cut chances created, they're really few and far between at the moment. What's keeping QPR above water, we said it a few videos ago as well, is that the level at the bottom of the Championship hasn't been particularly high so far this season. We've had a lot of underachieving teams so far, you know, the likes of Derby and Forest especially. If this current run continues for QPR, it really could spiral into something nasty, because I don't see where consistently the goals are going to come from with this current setup at the moment. But Swansea, absolutely fantastically clinical, you know, they were good without the ball and took their chances going forward. Just before half-time, AU with that goal, and the low goal, such poor defending from QPR here, but it's a great pick out from Matty Grimes, sees the run of Jamal Lowe, who brilliantly runs onto it and then finishes well. That's now him on a hot run of form at the moment, and Swansea have really put themselves into that promotion picture now. But for QPR, I mean, you can see by the stats to the side of me here, 66% possession, 1 shot on target. It's not good enough. Reading picked up a big result this weekend as they saw off Luton by 2 goals to 1. The result sees them going back into the top 6, and some more positive news from them was getting John Swift back in the team as well. He came off the bench in the second half. This was some week for players getting back involved. You know, we saw Bradley Dack for Blackburn, John Swift for Reading, and I can't say how excited I am to see, you know, a forward 3 behind Lucas Jout of Elise, Swift and Ajari. That will be, seriously, there's goals to be had there for Reading in the second half of the season if all those 4 players are fit at the same time. But for Reading, really fast start for them. I think that Luton will be disappointed in the manner of which they conceded these goals. The first one came from quite a clever set piece, and the second goal ultimately came from them giving the ball away a little bit cheaply in midfield, but really well taken. Nice little layoff from Bullock into the path of Semino, who makes a good run. He finishes it well. A big moment towards the end of that half was Luton potentially not getting the penalty that they maybe deserved. It was given as a free kick outside the box. Looked very close though, and to me, did just look inside. Obviously, if that penalty is given just before half-time, bit of a different game coming into the second half, where Luton were chasing it a lot more. They made a couple of changes at half-time, but ultimately Reading set up well defensively. They did get a goal back into it, but it was just a consolation goal. Lualua with a nice finish from outside the box, but I think that Raphael probably could have done a little bit better. But nevertheless, a positive result for Reading there. And then to finish things off, we had Watford beating Norwich by 1 goal to 0. Now, this result does make things a lot more interesting in and around the top of the Championship. Up until this point, Norwich had been sort of looking like the runaway leaders for the league, but I don't think there's going to be all too much of an overreaction from the Norwich fans here. You know, it was just a bit of an off day where one too many of their players probably just weren't quite at 100%, but I think they got quite a winnable game against QPR coming up next. But for Watford, Xisco Munoz got a real tune out of his team here. The goal really well worked, Semi linking up with Sarr. The goal reminded me a lot of one that Ryan Sessegnon would score a lot for Fulham. Really intelligent movement from Sarr, who obviously has that link up with Semi on the opposite side. Just ghosts into that far post and finishes well to make it 1-0 for Watford. They did have a couple of other chances as well, but for Norwich, just weren't quite at it. Like I said, I thought that the subs in the second half that they made did make a little bit of an impact on the game, but ultimately Watford had them at bay, and it's set up for a very interesting second half of the season now with how the current league table's looking. Norwich still have their lead at the top of the Championship. It has been cut down slightly, but they still lead by 4 points. For Watford, I'm excited to see what's to come under this new manager. But guys, there we have it. There was all the action that took place in the Championship over Boxing Day, so do let me know in the comments down below what you made of your team's performance if they were playing. In terms of my result of the weekend, I think I'm going to give that to Watford, you know, for beating league leaders Norwich in Xisco Munez's first game in charge. Really impressive stuff there that sets up an interesting second half to the season. And then for my goal of the weekend, we had some absolute thunderbolt scores. Head on over to the community tab of the channel if you want to vote on this one. For me personally, I think Will Vokes' goal against Brentford was just outrageous, wasn't it? From his own half, they may have not won the game, but nevertheless, just outrageous. There was all the Boxing Day action. Now let's head into my midweek Championship score predictions. So to get involved in the prediction league, all you need to do is leave your score predictions in the comments down below. Without any further ado, let's hop into them. Starting out with Birmingham going up against Derby. Now Birmingham's home record's still not the best, and Derby will be feeling quite aggrieved with that late goal they conceded against Preston. They will be without Martin Wycombe. To be honest, I wouldn't be all too surprised to see this one being a fairly low score, 1 goal either way. I'm going to go for a goalless draw though. I don't see all too much being in that one. Sheff Wednesday up against Middlesbrough. Tough game for Wednesday at this point. Obviously Middlesbrough not in action on Boxing Day, but coming into this game still on a very good run of form. They've won their last 3 matches. They've been scoring quite a few goals. It's Pulis up against Warnock as well, which always makes for an interesting spectacle. After this game for Wednesday, they got a couple of decent fixtures coming up, but I think this one's going to be a tough one. I'm going to go 2-0 Borough. Huddersfield up against Blackburn. Tough game to judge because Huddersfield can turn it on like that and come out with a performance out of nowhere. Blackburn have been fairly inconsistent throughout the season so far. It's just 1 win in their last 5 now. I'm going to go 2-1 Huddersfield in that game. They are the sort of side that can play well against teams like Blackburn, who will come on to them a little bit. Luton up against Bristol City. Luton back at home I think is a positive. Their home record there has been very good so far this season. For Bristol City, it's all about trying to get back a bit of consistency, but I feel like over this period there still may be a few cracks to come. I'm going to go 2-1 Luton in that game. Norwich up against QPR. QPR on a terrible run of form at the moment. Norwich not at their best by any means at the weekend, but I feel like this is a decent opportunity to put the weekend right. I'm going to go 2-0 Norwich in that game. Preston up against Coventry, another game where I don't see all too much being in it. Coventry's defensive record lately has been absolutely fantastic with Matty Godden back in the equation as well. That should give them a little bit more firepower moving forward. I'm quite interested to see the outcome of this one really. Can Preston make it 3 wins in a row? That would be unheard of for us so far this season. I'm going to back us for it, why not? I'm going to go 1-0 Preston. The first goal does seem crucial in that game though. Rotherham up against Barnsley. Rotherham, another one of those sides who weren't involved in the action on Boxing Day, going up against this Barnsley side who are looking quite good at the moment and continue to chip away moving up the table. I'm going to go 2-1 Barnsley in that game. Wycombe up against Cardiff. For Wycombe, it's real fine margins which are letting them down at the moment, but it could be the same sort of case in this game. I'm going to go 2-1 Cardiff. Stoke versus Forest, another one where I don't see all too many goals being scored in it. Stoke's defensive record as of late has been absolutely marvellous, but in terms of actually scoring goals and creating clear-cut opportunities, they've been a little bit more few and far between. But giving credit to Stoke, what they've been really good at lately has been picking up points on the road and winning their home matches. I think that's going to continue in this one. I'm going to go 1-0 Stoke. Brentford up against Bournemouth is a very intriguing fixture. Bournemouth obviously had Boxing Day off, so had that extra bit of recovery. Brentford have been playing a lot of football matches recently with the cup games they've had added to the schedule as well. I'm going to go for a lively 1-1 draw in that game. Can't separate those two. And then to finish things off, we've got Swansea going up against Reading. Now, the added bonus that Reading have at the moment is players coming back into the squad. I know that Lucas Giles not too far away. We got to see John Swift back in action at the weekend, but Swansea are getting results at the moment and they do look very good for their money sitting in second, and they won't want to give up that position lightly. I'm going to just edge Swansea for this game. I'm going to go 2-1 to the home side. But as you can see to the side of me, those are my midweek score predictions. So we've got 11 games going on in midweek. Do get all your thoughts in the comments down below. I'm interested to see what you guys are saying for them. But apart from that, guys, that will now wrap it up for today's video. So if you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like. It is always massively appreciated. And please do stick around and subscribe for a bit of regular Championship content. But apart from that, thanks for tuning in, guys. And I'll see you all in the next one.